Welcome into Beyond the Buzzer, a Courier Sports podcast. Keeping it with the new layout, though the table setup is a little bit different. We're operating with a different camera setup as well, so hopefully there's no issues. We ran into some technical difficulties last week and ended up being an audio-only show. I don't know if you guys knew that, but I had to scrap the video portion.
Damn it, I looked really pretty last week.
Yeah, you look pretty every week, Jim. It's all right. Donald, mustache looks great as always. We didn't get to see it last week, but as people can see, the mustache is still going strong.
It is.
There's man of few words.
I know what I got.
All right. Well, how about you go ahead and tell us about the story that you got Friday night as Wapsie Valley rolls to a win over Danville. What did you see up in Fairbank?
It was a really, really dominant performance, especially defensively, holding them to a shutout until the fourth quarter when they got a touchdown, and it was pretty much over. Kanan Decker, fantastic performance, just really getting those legs going. I think it was about 5 rushing touchdowns for this kid and a pass. So just tremendous work on his part. And going back to that defense, we're talking about 4 interceptions that game, 3 of those in the first half. So they were very much lights out. I said, and then Kanan Decker having one of the best nights of his high school career. So it's really interesting to see the KD Warriors and what they can do with football.
The what Warriors?
KD.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you now. I was like, what does Kevin Durant have to do with that? And then I made the Kanan Decker connection.
I got to get my one bad pun in once per week. That's fair. It's in my contract.
Fair enough.
One thing just making note of is that as they get ready to take on Maquoketa Valley, and we'll talk about that soon too, but there is some room for improvement in their special teams. They missed 6 of their 7 PAT attempts, one of those going for 2. But you have a full touchdown from the points there. Obviously, their defense made sure that was not an issue. But as the schedule gets harder and they play tougher teams like Maquoketa Valley, that is definitely something that they are going to want to shore up.
Definitely.
A man familiar with saying the word Maquoketa, Donald Prominence.
He pronounced it right, Maquoketa.
Office,
I'm impressed.
Kind of an office celebrity a little bit because of his coverage of the tragic event that happened there last year with the poor family. But he ended up on a national crime podcast for it. I was very excited. My wife listens to the podcast. I was on my way back from something in Iowa City that Jim had sent me to, and Donald makes it in this crime podcast. So, hey.
Yeah. Hey. I'm always telling people about how I was featured in Park Predators. So
we don't want to promote another podcast on here, but that was the name of the one that Park Predators was the name of the podcast he was on. Jim, before
and
we
did it anyway.
Yeah, he
promoted him anyway.
Yeah, I know. I did.
You did.
Before I get to my Metro matchup, which was also a blowout. What can you tell us, writing up the scoreboard, writing up the roundup? What were some of the scores that kind of popped off the page to you? It doesn't necessarily need to be a playoff game from this last weekend. What was the score that kind of popped off?
I looked at them and I think it was a lot of those round of 32 games. They're going to go along with party line. They're going to go along the favorite's going to win 95% of the time in those games, I would say. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing. I don't think there's really any super surprises there. I think you got to give some props to Jessup, first ever win in the playoffs for their high school football program. Coming up with a big win for them at advance in the tournament. I think another one is Union went up and beat Waukon and advance. They don't got no favors. They have to go play the 2-time defending champ Van Meter this Friday. But there's 2 that kind of stand out. Is Jessup for their first win ever, and then and then Union getting a win over Waukon and advancing in the 2A playoff field. That's probably one a lot of people didn't see happening. And congrats to the Knights there too on that win. So. They've won 3 straight. They were 0-6, and now look at it. They're playing in the quarterfinal, not quarterfinals. They're playing in the round of 16 in the state playoffs. So,
obviously, congratulations to Union, but that one still kind of hurts.
Yeah.
Because of your familial ties to Waukon?
maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit of bias to me. Sumner Fredericksburg had a big win last week over South Hardin. I believe it was a fourth.
That was a tight game.
It was a fourth down stop in the red zone. So I saw them do that three or four times against Denver a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So not stunning that they were able to pull it off, considering what I've already seen.
I thought that was going to be a little far, not as tight as game, but that was probably one of the better games in the 1A.
Yeah, it was
in the area.
Unfortunately, neither Don or I was there. No, I'm not complaining about where I ended up.
There was a lot of games we had to cover last week, and unfortunately, I was. Let me see. I was in the middle of a Broadway show. So sorry.
What did you go to Spider-Man or?
No, I went to Back to Future on Thursday, but I went and saw Some Like It Hot on Friday. So back-to-back features on Broadway. It was a pretty good time.
Yeah. So some people in this newsroom get vacation.
Some of us I did a lot of work, heavy lifting.
Some of us are named Donald and Ethan. It's just
a lot of heavy lifting moving my daughter into her first apartment out there. A lot of heavy lifting.
I was at Waterloo Columbus against Pocahontas area. I mentioned that I was going to be covering that game last week on the podcast. I don't know if that was part that got clipped out. So the show ended up getting cut in half because of our technical difficulties last week.
That's like twice now you've had technical. We didn't have a Panther podcast.
I recorded the entire episode. It just ended up being that there were some technical difficulties and our audio was off from our mouths because of how I had the USB stuff lined up on the computer. So
now we're gonna get real technical on you. So
yeah, there was some audio delay issues going on that I wasn't about to spend hours rectifying last Monday. I could have, but I didn't want to.
Yeah,
so I'm a little lazy. My apologies. I was at Columbus, Pocahontas area. The Sailors 7-2 now after a big win, 47-6. I called it a beatdown in my story. The Indians 4-5. They were held scoreless. The Indians were until the final 2 minutes of the game. And so Don and I both got to watch almost shutouts on Friday night. What was it? The same final score though?
43-6.
Oh no. Okay. All right. 47-6, 43-6. Close, but not. And I was just really impressed with what the Sailors were able to do just in the entire game. It really didn't feel like. I mean, they scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, and it was kind of over from there. And then I talked to Coach Schmidt after the game. He's like, well, I didn't feel like we played our best first half. And it's like, you were killing them already within the first 12 minutes of the game. I don't know what you're talking about. You scored more in the first half than you did in the second half. But moving forward, the thing that strikes me about the Sailors is obviously Mason Knipp is a force on the defensive line and the offensive line for that matter. But he's leading 1A in tackles for loss, sacks. But the Sailors have a super balanced attack. Passing and rushing. Parker Shelton can do it all on the ground, and Carter Lockert can do it with his arm. And he's got a ton of receivers. He's got Nick Merrifield. Oh goodness, what's his name? Miles Gardner. I've talked to him at the 2 games I've been to for Waterloo Columbus. He seems like he's catching a couple of touchdown passes. He caught 3 on Friday night. But they have 1,745 yards passing, 1,744 yards rushing. You can't get much more balance than that.
That was funny. I wrote up one of my capsules and I'm going to forget what team it was, but they had like 17-26 rushing and 17-16 passing. I'm like, wow, that's balanced. And I wish now that I've said it, and I should have brought more notes in here, but yeah, that's crazy. That's good balance. Columbus going to hurt you a lot of ways. They're a very dangerous team in this 1A field. I mean, I know they've got a loss to Grundy Center. I think they feel that, they feel they handed that one to Grundy Center. This team, if they get to the Dome, they're gonna be a handful because they can do so much offensively.
At risk of just regurgitating the article, so I'm not going to go point by point here, but I got a little math quiz for you guys here. Ready?
Okay.
All right.
When was the last time you guys dusted off the calculator? Because you're going to need it for this algebraic equation that Columbus is living by this season.
Okay.
PIYP equals PIYP.
I have no idea what that means, but
Donald, you got a guess?
No, I don't.
All right. That is pride in your preparation equals production in your performance. And that's what the Sailors are living by here. And
it's a little mantra. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. It's on the hat that Coach Schmidt was wearing on Friday night while I was talking to him. And I asked him, I think I finish every playoff interview and definitely every regular season interview with what's next for this team. What do you guys got coming up next? And Coach Schmidt just pointed at the hat. He's like, this is what we have to do next to get where we want to be. Columbus is looking to win, advance beyond the second round for the first time since 2020. So that's what the Sailors are looking at moving up into a game against South Hamilton. We'll go ahead and transition into our this week playoff previews. We talked about last week. Now we'll talk a little bit about this upcoming week. Sailors have the South Hamilton
Hawks.
Thank you. It's in there somewhere. The Hawks, yes, there they are.
The Jewel. They're
yes.
in Jewel.
Yes, in Jewel.
It's a town with a friendly setting. That's their town motto. Since we're
Why
into
do you
mantras,
know that?
I might know somebody from Jewel that I might be married to.
Oh, I didn't know Kelly was from Jewel. I just figured you guys were both from Waterloo.
Technically, she's from Stanhope, but she says she's from Jewel.
I don't know where either of those places are. So that's fantastic. I can tell you that this game's going to be played in Jewel at the Mike Penning Athletic Complex, or if you want to get really specific, Taylor Field at the Mike Penning Athletic Complex in Jewel. And the Sailors, like I said, looking to advance beyond the second round for the first time since 2020, and they're facing a team that's only appeared in the playoffs 13 times. Jim, relying on your experience, given the history coming up in this matchup, is that a factor at all in how these two teams match up?
I don't think so. I'd still say the Sailors are favored in this matchup. I think they played a tougher schedule. That's not taking anything away from South Hamilton. I just think that the Sailors have something. This team has something. The Columbus team has something. And they've got that balance, and then they got a guy that's just nearly unstoppable on defense. And he's not going to make a play every down, but he's going to make impactful plays that are going to that are part of the game, or that help the Sailors win. So I think that's the big thing right there. I think that's a road win. I think you pointed out, and I'm stealing some of your thunder, but the Sailors have been pretty good on the road this year.
Well, you'd just be stealing from Coach Schmidt, because he was the one that brought it to my attention that they haven't lost on the road yet this year. The Sailors are 4-0 on the road. They've won those combined matchups 133-31. But here's the caveat to that: South Hamilton's undefeated at home, and they've won
Something's got to give
by a handed margin. So it's somebody's not going to be able to finish the season perfect at either on the road or at home.
So we got an unstoppable force against an unmovable object, then basically.
Something like that, essentially. We have an impenetrable fortress versus siege machine that's never been defeated before, if we want to get a little bit more particular.
Boy, we're really getting some analogies here.
Yes. I mean, hey, that's our job, right?
It is.
Make it easier to understand through analogy. Donald.
Yes.
Has Jim given you your assignment yet for this week?
I have. You guys have had them for multiple days.
Assignments, but I've got for football, I've got the 8-man matchup with Waco at Don Bosco, so I will be driving out to Gilbertville for that.
Tom Ryan Field.
And Don promised not to branch out into any unsavory puns there, so we're going to go ahead and focus on what the Dons are bringing to the table after a big win last week. Don, what can you tell us about how these teams are stacking up?
Well, of course, Waco Warriors were the runners-up last season, so they're gonna obviously be looking to get back into the Unidome. But Don Bosco is definitely in a good position to win this. Caden Kanak has been a fantastic offensive powerhouse for the Dons. With we've got 452 passing yards from him and 1,482 rushing yards. So he's an absolute beast on offense, or solid double threat. And you've got like a grimace there, Jim.
No, nothing. No, he's an excellent wrestler, excellent baseball player. I don't even know what he's going to do in college, and he's a pretty good football player. So, yeah, the guy can do a little bit of everything for the Dons.
I don't know if this made it into my teams to watch or players to watch stuff at the beginning of the season, but when I talked to Coach Yoder about the Dons, he mentioned that Kanak is a quarterback with a skill set unlike that they've had in a while, and his ability to blend the run and the pass and be that dual threat kind of guy. So he was certainly high on what he was going to be able to do this season. It seems like that's come to fruition a little bit. When a team has had a tradition like Don Bosco, Jim, I like to throw you these questions. I'm sure they just make you super excited. When a team's got the tradition of Don Bosco and they come up way short last year with a loss to New Fonda at their own place, what's the hunger level? What's the I guess, fight of that team look like the next season?
Well, their season ended far sooner than they've ever experienced, because since they've turned to 8-player, they've just been a dominant program. It seems like they're always in the dome. So that was tough last year because they had a pretty solid team. They ran into a team I think might have made the finals or the semis for sure. It's they played really well. I remember that game. I covered that game, and I remember it was a tale of two halves. Really, Don Bosco controlled the first half, and then they almost like they forgot how to play football in the second half. And I think Newell Fonda, I believe that's who it was. Now that coming to me, just found a different gear in the second half and ran away with that game. So it was really surprising. So I just think they know how to win. They're good in baseball. They're good at, obviously they're really good at wrestling. It's just a bunch of kids that are really good at knowing how to win. They know how to win. It's a winning culture. So. And that success breeds success. So, and that I think that translates over all their programs. So that's why you're seeing them here again. I think this team. I think if you argue that this team is much smaller than the team they had last year, they had a team that was much more physical last year. But they're finding, as it turns out, they found ways to win. They just know how to win. So I think that's the big thing with the Dons.
Yeah, I think you mentioned. Baseball and football and wrestling. You've also got to mention softball and volleyball having excellent traditions there too.
Yeah, well, I'm talking to the boys.
I know, but they're
that's true.
Those are also some really good
true statements. So
emerging.
You guys are both talking about some great tradition, but you're both talking maybe a little bit too far away from the microphone. So for any further comments, let's get those things a little bit closer.
All right, here it is. So here you go.
We don't need it again.
I've got something totally different here.
All right.
This is true to our nature, especially on our Panther podcast. But, Don, here at your pregame, you should stop by the 10th inning on the way into town. It's the one of two restaurants, I think, in all of Gilbertville. Have a little pregame there. They got a nice little menu. I've been there a few times, so you can't miss it.
I will have to take your advice on that. That sounds good.
And then I was also going to add that maybe I should quit relying on your memory so much, Jim, because I covered the Newell Fonda Don Bosco game last year, and you took the pictures at that game. So yeah,
I knew I was at it.
Yes,
I knew I was at that game.
Yes, I was the one that was covering.
You were covering. Yes. I was shooting pictures.
I'll tell you, just all the advertising we're doing with this podcast. Him with his wife's favorite podcast, you at the 10th inning.
Yeah.
It's not her favorite podcast. It's just one that she listens to.
One of her favorites. The next week is going to be sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
If Raid Shadow Legends wants to, I would gladly take their money. We would sell out to Raid Shadow Legends.
We are total sellouts. We haven't gotten anything yet, but we're totally selling out.
Do you get that joke, Jim?
No, I have no idea what that is. It's some podcast you guys listen to.
Raid Shadow Legends is a mobile game that advertises on just about every YouTube video.
It's the largest, fastest growing mobile game in the country.
All right, you're
now,
actually promoting it now, Donald. So I'm going to cut you off there.
I have no idea what it is.
Jim, will you be? Yeah, you will be at a game.
I will be at a game. I will be up in North Iowa covering Clear Lake, hosting Sioux City Heeland.
Boo! Not a Courier matchup. So you can go ahead and quit talking.
All right.
I am covering the rematch of the century, or the rematch of the season, as Cedar Rapids Kennedy returns to the Unidome, looking for a revenge game against Cedar Falls, who gets an extra game at the Dome in the final season that they will be spending in that historic venue. Jim and I were both at that game 2 weeks ago when Cedar Falls won 17-14, forced 5 turnovers, 2 interceptions, 3 fumbles. I believe you said that quarterback for Kennedy, Gianforte, had not thrown an interception all season until
he had one coming to the game, and he threw 2 in the same game. Yeah,
threw 2 in the same game. The big thing that I think the key to the win for the Cougars would be to shut down Drake Gelhaus, because if you look at it, the Tigers had 140 rushing yards total in the entire game. Drake Gelhaus had 143. Yeah. So the rest of the team was -3. Gelhaus was 143. So he kind of tore them apart. He didn't get into the end zone, but he set up a lot of the scoring drives. And that's what I think is going to be the key for the Cougars in getting a repeat defensive performance. Obviously, you can't rely on a 5 turnover outing again.
Yeah,
I don't like same thing if SDSU.
You'd love that, yes.
If SDSU played UNI again, I doubt it's going to be a 5 turnover performance. I doubt Cedar Falls is going to be able to force 5 turnovers again. They might force 6. They might force 1. So it's going to need to be a similar defensive outing in terms of only giving up 228 total yards like they did last time out, and the majority of that was keeping the ground game in check for the Cougars. So that's what I think is the key to victory for both of those teams. Being the one who covered the game, since I was just there taking videos, what do you feel could have swung things differently 2 weeks ago?
Well, you know, looking back, I don't think a lot of that matters. I think what matters now is Cedar Falls. They're going to have to be a little more balanced. They didn't really get much out of the pass game. They're going to have to find something in the pass game, and they're going to have to make impactful plays at impactful times. You know, they really held a powerful Kennedy pass attack pretty much in check. Not a lot. The Kennedy, Gianforte had a couple touchdown passes. You know, so. But I think they got to hold that in check. They got to continue to get pressure on Gianforte and make him, and that's what happened. Both, I think the picks were, they got pressure on him. So they got to get pressure on him. Drew Campbell's got to have a big game again. Obviously, he's going against Brooks, the Iowa commit there. He's a mountain of man. You saw him 6'8", 350.
Yeah.
Drew Campbell's a big kid, but he looked kind of small against this guy a little bit. But that's the marquee matchup. Two future Hawkeyes going against each other. Coming off the edge there, left tackle and right defensive end. So, but they moved Drew around too, and I think they do that to get some mismatches. So he was all over the place. They need a big game from him. But really, again, the Cedar Falls, they're going to want to dominate. They're going to want to set the tone with their ground game, but they need to have a little more balance to that pass game. They got some athletes there. I think they can get something going with that pass game. And then same thing. They just got to bend but not break with that Kennedy passing attack and. Kennedy's got a lot of explosive weapons now, and I think they feel pretty motivated to be coming back here. As I was standing there as they were coming out, Kennedy was pretty mad at themselves for losing that game when they came off the field because they were hoping to be the team playing at home this week, and the loss to Cedar Falls has probably kept them from having to go on the road. So, I mean, it's not a bad place. It's going to be cold. It's going to be our first cold weekend. It's going to be down below 50, So
does that matter for an indoor matchup?
I should send you to Clear Lake, and I should stay here and cover the.
I don't work for the Globe Gazette.
Well, I can make you.
There's plenty of other area matchups I can go to.
I could, but we're gonna do 2 and 2. So, but anyway, Kennedy, they get to come play in the Dome. There's gonna be no elements that's gonna bother this game, so it'll be interesting. That's a game I'm really gonna keep an eye on while I'm covering my game is to see if it's similar or what happens in that one.
And you know how you can keep an eye on all of those games that we've brought up? You can go ahead and follow the Waterloo-Cedar Falls Courier Sports page on X. I need to look up the handle because I always forget it because we have 2 different ones floating around for our Instagram and our Twitter. If you want Instagram updates, I'll be doing updates on Courier Sports from Kennedy, Cedar Falls. It's a little tricky to do 2 people in 2 different locations doing Instagram updates, so I'm getting that one instead of Donald. But the X account for Courier Sports is WCFC Sports. Give that one a follow. You probably already know about it if you're listening to this podcast, quite frankly, but tell your friends to check it out. That's where you're going to be able to see updates from both Don and I retweeted by that page. So if you follow that page, if you don't want to follow Don or I because we just maybe tweet a little bit too much about the Packers, or maybe I'm engaging with a little bit too much Nebraska content on Twitter, you can just go ahead and follow that one. It's not going to hurt my feelings because you're seeing my tweets either way. It's helping the analytics. It's helping my engagement. I'll take it. We'll go ahead and finish it up with a little bit of state cross country. Let me pause and read off all of our area playoff games real quick. We also have Independence at Mount Vernon, Union at Van Meter, New Hampton at Spirit Lake, Jessup at Monticello. Jessup getting a win in their first playoff appearance last week.
No, this is their third appearance.
Their third.
Third appearance, first win.
Oh, okay. All right.
First win.
I misunderstood or I misheard what you said. Pella Christian at Grundy Center, Dyke New Hartford.
That's a rematch. Pella Christian and Grundy played earlier. Grundy handled that one. Sorry.
There you go. I should probably add that to my capsule then. Yeah. Dyke New Hartford at Sigourney Keota, Sumner Fredericksburg at Emmitsburg, Columbus Catholic at South Hamilton, and then we have Maquoketa Valley at Wapsie Valley. Ooh, that's kind of a tongue twister. Iowa Valley at Clarksville, Gladbrook Rhinebeck at Central City, and Waco at Don Bosco for area playoff games. I left out all the Gazette ones in that list. Jim, if you were saying, hey, that wasn't the list I sent you guys, but it's all right.
There's Heelan at Clear Lake, and I think we're covering St. Anne's, Lake Mills at St. Ansgar.
Yes, that is correct.
And West Hancock somewhere, but I can't remember.
I could look it up.
Yeah, it's
One
all right.
second here.
Oh, he's going to look it up.
I have the email pulled up. Wes Hancock at Starmont.
At Starmont. All right. There you go. There you have it. Those are all the games the North Iowa sports staff are covering this week, are watching, following.
On Friday.
On Friday.
We're covering some more games on Tuesday. Well, today.
I mean, volleyball. You're
Wednesday.
talking volleyball.
Yeah.
You're confusing these people.
I'm not confusing anybody.
We're talking football, then you throw volleyball in there.
As clear as it gets.
We got some cross country coming in here.
Well, that I was about to get to, and I was going to say, now we're going to start talking about state cross country. So now we're talking about state cross country.
All right.
Jim, you were a snake and went on vacation and didn't cover any of the qualifying meets.
I covered my fair share of cross country.
Which is okay. I'm gonna have to step in because moving is not vacation.
We did some
he
vacation.
Was on vacation. She was moving. He was on vacation.
We did some vacation like things.
He didn't get to move. She got to move, so I'm not counting it.
All right.
Jim, you've said you mentioned you've covered a lot of cross country. You've done your fair share of cross country this year. What are some of the storylines that you're kind of watching? You've covered Cedar Falls a couple of times. I think that's the big one if we want to start there. But what are some of the storylines you're looking at going into state this week?
Well, yeah, definitely 4A. Cedar Falls boys are going to be among the favorites. You know, they've been ranked number 1 most of the year.
They're down to number 2 now. Dowling has taken the top
Dowling's
spot.
taken number 2. So that's going to be a great race, you know, but Cedar Falls is so balanced, led by Jaden Merrick. You know, he's going to be their front runner, but, you know, Luke Hartman and Ahmed Aldamak, you know, right behind him. And then they got 4 guys. Like I said, they've had 7 runners that are go under 16:30. That's fast. I mean, that's fast. So on any given time, they're going to have a tight pack behind those top 3. Those other 4 guys are going to have to be tagged. That's going to be the key for them, is those 4 guys behind them, because I think those 3 above, you know, I know there's been some injuries and illness that have ran through those guys, but those 3 guys are going to run probably top 15. So now you need where those 4 other guys are going to come, and you probably need them in the top 40. So it'll be interesting, or maybe higher. You know, I don't know. It's a tough race. You know, there's lots of people. It's a big start, bigger. It's a bigger meet than what you've ran in all year. And then there's a lot on the line. You know, it's going to be a little chilly. It's going to be a little colder this weekend. So, yeah, that can factor in. So it'll be interesting. So that's one right there for Cedar Falls. You know.
If we want to shift gears to the girls' side, just briefly, Cedar Falls also qualified on the girls' side. They are ranked. IowaRunJumpandThrow.com does their coaches' rankings, and in the final team rankings, Cedar Falls was number 15. They only rank 15 teams. So Cedar Falls was right there, just getting in. I don't think that speaks to necessarily how good the Cedar Falls girls are. I thought that they had a good meet, even without some of their better runners having their best day that I've ever seen out of the ladies in Cedar Falls. So I just wanted to mention that as well. You can go ahead and have the floor again, Jim.
But, you know, you speak of that too. Waterloo West, Nakia Olivier. Olivier. Boy, I'm going to have to learn how to say that, because she's a pretty good basketball player too. She was going to be among the contenders to win in Class 4A. So those are Friday. And then, you know, really, you look at it, 1A, 2A, 3A, you know, you could look at, we have a lot of solid teams, both boys and girls. You know, the girls, Denver's pretty good. Union's got a solid team. You know, I'm throwing some teams out there. And, you know, you look at Cadence Huck from Nashville Plainfield. She'll be in the mix of things in Class 1A. The boys, you know, you look at Grundy Center's got a couple front runners, and Caden Lynch and Emerson Vokes. Wapsie Valley's Aiden Shannon. Denver's Neil Pinter. You know, some really, really solid, teams, you know, maybe not so much the super front runners, but they could put together a pretty good performance and, you know, bring home a trophy. I think across the board there, you know, Lakeside Golf Course there in Fort Dodge, Kennedy Park, a longtime host of the state cross country meet. It's a spectacle, and you know, you just never know what can happen. Somebody can come out of nowhere and just have the meet of their life, and you know, a lot of these teams, a lot of these racers and these teams have been there. They know it's the same course every year. They don't change anything up, so you can envision it, and you know what you need to do. You know where you need to make your move, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens Friday and Saturday.
Before I spoil the entire list, I just painstakingly put together 5 runners in both boys and girls competitions to watch in Fort Dodge. I'll just let you know that that's coming out very soon. It's going to be in the Thursday edition of the Courier.
Edition.
I'm the one laying it out,
Online.
so I'm going to ensure that it happens.
Yes.
So
plenty of good content in that paper. On
the Thursday edition is going to be loaded. I mean, we had a
bunch of volleyball.
We had a pair of sweet editions last week on Saturday and Thursday and Saturday. I was laying those ones out too. So basically, if I lay out the paper, it looks significantly better than when Jim lays out the paper. But keep your eye out for those lists. We also have all of the qualifiers in the area.
Bunch of football capsules. Yep.
Yeah, we got football capsules. So if you want to preview all of the games that we already previewed on this show, you can check out the Thursday edition. If you want to read about all the area games, we got all of those in the capsules as well. State cross-country preview with all the qualifiers. That's going to be in the Thursday edition. It's going to be loaded. It's going to have some UNI content in there as well that I have to work on yet.
We're going to have a couple of regional volleyball finals. So we're at Union, West Delaware at Union tonight. We'll be there with Don and myself. And then we'll have West at Cedar Falls, big crosstown rivalry game to go to state. All the marbles right there.
No matter what.
That's going to be a packed gym.
No matter what, the Courier's got a Metro team at state. So
Ethan will be at that one.
Yep, I will be. Only X updates. Instagram is a little bit too much to handle with volleyball and the speed of that game. So it's a little bit more. It's a little bit easier with football, but volleyball too fast. So excited to see who emerges in the Tigers and the Wahawks as the Tigers and the Wahawks do battle. Jim, go ahead and give your plug for the preps to watch.
Preps to watch. It's a smaller group this year. This is probably the last one for the fall season. So if any coach has a nomination before, if we can get it by 1:00 tomorrow, you can get it in jim.nelson@wcfcourier.com. I only got a handful this week, so I'd love to get a couple more. You coaches know what to do, so that would be awesome if you can get that done for us. We'll be checking my email in the morning, so that'll be great. But anyway, some preps, some fantastic athletes that we are going to honor on Thursday too. So we just a lot of great stuff going on right now as we finish up the fall season. We're transitioning into the winter season. Our heads are about to explode because we're getting sports mixed up, names mixed up, towns mixed up, what town we're supposed to drive through, all that good stuff. We got a lot of things. We'll be on the road trying to think we're going to a volleyball match, and it's actually Friday night. And we're like, whew, I think I covered volleyball 2 nights ago. This is football. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
As Jim rambles into the abyss, I'll go ahead and let you know that it was Morgan Bradley from Waterloo, Columbus, Drake Gallus from Cedar Falls, Alexis Even from Don Bosco, Brody Zinkula from Grundy Center, and Marin Bixby from Dyke New Hartford, who were our preps to watch last week. And in addition to getting a sweet headshot on our website and in the paper, you also get that sweet headshot going up on Instagram. So it's a fun time to be a prep to watch. You get tagged. Our massive Instagram page of 186 followers.
Hey, we started from scratch. We started from scratch this year, so we need a few Instagram followers.
192 followers.
So we started from scratch. I think we're getting there. We're getting there.
On a note, though, with our previous preps to watch with Morgan Bradley, congratulations to her. Last night, she got her 1,000th career kill in volleyball in her very last game. So congratulations to her.
Mm-hmm. Good note there, Don.
Yeah, good get there at the end. We'll go ahead and say goodbye for this episode. You two go ahead and wave as I say goodbye. It's nice. See, they're like waving at me. Catch us next week. This has been a great episode. I hope you guys come back. This has been Beyond the Buzzer.